Hey everybody, and welcome back to Chat Like a Native. Today we're going to really dive into how to just sound clear and get to the point when you're speaking English. I think this is so important, and it's something that a lot of people struggle with,
Yeah,
How do you get your point across
right.
quickly and clearly?
It's all about being understood.
Yeah, and not wasting time.
Exactly.
And it can really increase your confidence
Absolutely.
if you can do this well.
Oh, yeah, big time.
So let's start by just thinking about, why is clarity important? What do you think?
Well, I think clarity is important because, like you were saying, you save so much time.
Right.
You're not, you're not sort of going around in circles.
Yeah.
You're being very direct.
Right.
And you're making sure that the other person understands you.
Right.
And that's the whole point of communication.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you can do it in a way that is
Yeah.
clear and concise, then it's just much more effective for everybody involved.
Yeah. I always think of this analogy imagine you're trying to explain a really simple idea, but you just keep adding all these extra details.
Wow.
It's like you're trying to tell someone how to get to the grocery store, but you're like, well, first you have to go down this street, and then you might see a tree there, or maybe not a tree. And then you turn left, and then you go past the house that's painted blue.
Right.
It's like, no, just say turn left.
Exactly.
Go 2 blocks, you're there.
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how can we tell if we're doing this? How can we tell if we're kind of over-explaining or clear?
Okay, so one way to know if you're over-explaining is if you're repeating the same idea multiple times
Okay.
in slightly different ways.
Uh-huh.
So you're kind of saying the same thing over and over again,
Yeah.
but you're just using different words each time.
Right.
For example, you might say, this is really, really important.
Okay.
It's crucial that you remember this.
Right.
Or you absolutely need to know this. Okay, so you're saying the same thing 3 times,
Yeah.
but you're just changing the words a little bit.
Yeah. I do that one a lot, I
Yeah.
think. I'm
Yeah.
like, did they get it? Did they get it?
Right.
Maybe if I say it again, they'll really get it.
Exactly.
So it's probably annoying.
It can be.
Yeah.
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 Another sign that you might be over-explaining is if you're including unnecessary details.
Okay.
So you're giving a lot of information
Yeah.
that isn't really relevant to the main point.
Uh-huh.
For example, if you're telling someone why you're late,
Okay.
you don't need to tell them every single thing that happened on your way there.
Right.
You don't need to say, well, I left my house at 8 o'clock and then I hit traffic on Elm Street
Right.
and then I had to stop for gas and then I couldn't find my keys.
Exactly.
Just say, I'm sorry, I'm late. I hit some traffic.
Right. Just get to the point.
Yeah, exactly.
And what about those little words that we use, all the time,
Oh, the filler words?
Yeah, the filler word.
Yeah.
And
Like basically.
yeah.
Yeah, those are a big one.
I'm so guilty of that.
Yeah.
So what do you think about those? Why are those a problem?
Well, I think they're a problem because they don't really add any meaning
Yeah.
to what you're saying.
Right.
They just kind of fill up the space.
Yeah.
And they can make you sound
Yeah.
less confident.
Right. You're not sure what you're going to say next.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think a few of them are okay.
Yeah.
In natural speech.
Of course.
It would be weird if we didn't use any.
Right.
But yeah, if it's every other word,
Yeah.
it becomes a problem.
Exactly.
And then I think the other one that I struggle with sometimes is just taking a long time to get to the point. I'm
Wow.
kind of circling around the topic,
Yeah.
and then eventually I get to the point, but it
Yeah.
takes me a while.
Right.
I'm building up the suspense.
Yeah.
Which is not always necessary.
Yeah, you don't want to write a novel when you're just trying to
Yeah.
tell someone something simple.
Exactly. Yeah.
So why do we do this?
Why are we over-explaining?
I think there are a few reasons.
Oh, right.
One reason could be nerves,
Okay. Well.
especially if you're speaking in a second language.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You might feel like you need to say more
Yeah.
in order to be understood.
Right. You're trying to overcompensate for any mistake.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another reason could be politeness.
Okay.
In some cultures, it's considered rude to be too direct.
Right.
So you might over-explain in order to avoid
Yeah.
sounding abrupt.
Right. Or you're making demands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I think a third reason could be just lack of confidence
Okay.
in your English skills.
Yeah.
You might over-explain because you're not sure
Yeah.
you're using the right words.
Right. So you're trying to kind of cover all your bases.
Exactly.
Yeah. With extra words. Okay. So we've identified the problem. We know why we do it.
Yeah.
What can we do to fix it?
How can we be more concise?
Yeah. How can we be more clear?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to think before you speak.
Okay.
So just take a moment to gather your thoughts and figure out what you want to say.
Right. So don't just start talking.
Exactly, yeah.
Have that little pause and think. Right?
Right.
I like that.
And then when you are speaking,
Yeah.
try to use simple language.
Okay.
So don't use big words just to try to sound smart.
Right.
Just use the words that you know
Yeah.
and that are easy to understand.
Sometimes I think people think that using bigger words makes them sound smarter,
Right.
but if they're not using it correctly, or if the other person doesn't understand the word, it can make them sound less smart.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah.
What else?
Another tip is to focus on your key points.
Okay.
So when you're explaining something,
Yeah.
start by stating your main point and then give only the examples that are relevant to that point.
Right. So don't go off on tangents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And try to be a good listener.
Okay.
So pay attention to the person you're talking to.
Yeah.
And see if they seem to understand.
Right.
If they're looking confused.
Yeah.
Or if they're asking you questions.
Yeah.
Then you might need to explain things a little bit more.
Right.
But if they seem to get it,
yeah,
then you can move on.
And I think it's also okay to just ask, did you understand that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback.
Yeah.
You can say, does that make sense? Or am I explaining this clearly?
Right.
And then you can get some feedback from the other person.
And I think sometimes we're afraid to do that because we think it makes us sound like we don't know what we're talking about.
Right.
But I think it's actually better to just ask and make sure.
I agree.
And to just keep going.
Right.
And have them not understand.
What else?
What else can we do?
You can also embrace pauses.
Okay.
So it's okay to have silence in a conversation.
Right.
You don't need to fill every second
yeah.
with words.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that silence feels awkward.
Right.
But it can actually be really helpful for both people to kind of process what's being said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another tip is to use a structured format for your sentences. So you could try using the point, reason, example method.
Okay. What's that?
So you start by stating your point.
Okay.
Then you give a reason for that point. And then you give an example to illustrate your point.
Right. So it's like point, reason.
Reason.
Example.
Example.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah. It's a good way to keep your thoughts organized.
Yeah.
And make sure that you're not rambling.
Right.
And finally, I would say, know your audience.
Yeah.
So think about who you're talking to and what their level of understanding is. And then adjust your explanation accordingly.
So if I'm talking to you about something, I can assume that you know something about language.
Right.
But if I'm talking to my grandmother, I'm going to have to explain it in a different way.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, now, I think one concern that people might have is that if they're too concise, they might sound rude.
Right.
So how do we balance being clear with also being polite?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think you could definitely be both. You could be clear and concise and still be polite.
Yeah.
For example, if you're making a request, you can say, could you please help me with this?
Okay.
That's a very clear and direct request.
Right.
But it's also polite because you're using the word please.
Right.
And you're using a polite tone of voice.
And you're not going on and on about all the reasons why you need help.
Exactly.
You're just getting to the point.
Right. And if you're thanking someone, you can simply say, thank you.
Yeah.
Or I appreciate your help. You don't need to give a long speech about how much you appreciate their help.
Keep it short and sweet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you need to clarify something, you can use a phrase like, or that is to say, and then give your clarification.
Right.
But again, keep it brief.
Yeah.
Don't go off on a tangent.
Okay, so basically, we can be both clear and polite.
Absolutely.
And all of these tips that we've been talking about, they apply to writing as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because a lot of our communication these days is written.
It is online.
Yeah, online.
Email, social media.
Right.
All of that.
Exactly.
So how can we be more concise in our writing?
Well, when you're writing an email, make sure you have a clear subject line.
Okay.
So that the person knows what the email is about.
Right.
Before they even open it.
Don't be mysterious.
Exactly.
Right.
And then in the body of the email, get to the point quickly.
Okay.
Don't bury the main point. Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, like 3 paragraphs down.
Exactly.
Yeah, no one's going to read that.
Right.
Okay, what about social media?
On social media, I think it's helpful to use bullet points or short paragraphs.
Okay.
Because people are scrolling through their feeds quickly.
Right.
They're not going to stop
Yeah.
and read a long post.
Right.
Unless it's really, really interesting.
Right.
And then in online meetings,
okay,
try to structure your points clearly.
Uh-huh.
And pause for responses.
Okay.
So that everyone has a chance
Yeah.
to understand what's being said.
Yeah, I hate it when people talk over each other in online meetings. It's
Yeah.
like, just wait your turn.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different things. For our listeners out there, what are some things they can do to practice this?
Well, one thing they can do is just try to be more aware
Okay.
of how they're communicating.
Mm.
So pay attention to
Yeah.
how much you're saying.
Right.
And whether you're getting to the point quickly.
Another thing they can do is record themselves speaking.
Okay.
And then listen back to the recording and see if they can identify any areas where they're over-explaining.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I should do that.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll be horrified, but
It can be helpful.
it would be helpful, yeah.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
else?
They can also learn from other people
Okay.
who are good communicators.
Uh-huh.
So pay attention to how people give presentations.
Yeah.
Or how they write emails.
Ah.
Or how they talk in conversations.
Right, like we can all learn from each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then finally, I would say,
Yeah.
just keep practicing.
Okay.
The more you practice,
Uh-huh.
the better you'll get at it.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of good stuff here.
Uh-huh.
What are the benefits? What are the benefits of being clear and concise?
Well, I think the biggest benefit is that you'll be understood.
Right.
That's the whole point of communication.
Yeah.
And then you'll also save time.
Because you're not wasting time with unnecessary words.
Right.
You'll also boost your confidence.
Okay.
Because you'll know that you're able to communicate effectively.
And when you're confident, you feel better about yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can do more. You take more risks.
Right.
So, yeah, that's really important. What else?
And then I think it also helps you to build stronger relationships.
Okay.
Because when you're communicating clearly, you're showing respect for the other person's time.
Right.
And you're making it easy for them to understand you.
Yeah, you're not frustrating them by talking too much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there are a lot of benefits.
Yeah, those are all really good. So basically what we're saying is talk smart, not hard.
I love that.
Yeah. Be clear, be concise, get to the point.
Exactly.
And everyone will be happier.
Absolutely.
Okay, so for everyone listening out there, start putting these tips into practice. And I think you'll be really surprised at how much of a difference it makes in your English communication. And just think about it. When you're communicating, think about how you're coming across. And is your message being understood? Are you connecting with people in the way that you want to connect?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's not just about speaking correctly.
Right.
It's about connecting with people.
Exactly. So thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.